how do you tackle getting pulled off designing brands just because your creative director doesn't agree with your design style, even though industry peers love your designs?
This was a really fun one to try and kind of work out as a creative director. And I suppose the first thing I got to was my first bit of advice was don't stress. The disagreements of this kind really are par for the course in any agency. You're definitely not the first person to be experiencing this, and you definitely won't be the last. And the thing that's really tricky is that a lot of what we do is very subjective. So it's inevitable that these kind of things are going to happen. And the other thing is that frequent rejection, unfortunately, is part of the territory with the kind of work that we do. So we need to learn to not take it personally. And I think that the thing there, the key piece there is that it's about the work, not about you. Mm-hmm. So someone saying, look, I don't think that's right. It's not saying that you're not a good designer or a good creative. It's just, it's actually saying that this particular work, for whatever reason, isn't right. And then I guess the key to this is really understanding why the CD is disagreeing with your design style. So first up, is it just because I don't like it? Or is it because I don't feel it's right for the brief? Mm-hmm. And I think this is the key thing, is that ultimately the difference between being a CD and being a regular creative is actually having the responsibility for deciding what's right.
Yeah.
And I actually remember a photographer friend of mine telling me that anyone with half decent sensibility can take a great photo now and again, but it takes a true professional to be able to deliver the perfect photo for the brief at hand. And I think that's the same thing here. There's going to be something that looks good, but whether it's right for the brief and what have you is another thing. So if you are 100% confident that your own creative ego isn't getting in the way, and that what you are designing without any doubt is a great solution to the client's brief, then you could consider suggesting to your CD that maybe he or she presents your work alongside the other routes and gets the client's take on it. So that's a possibility. But then the other thing I was going to say is that remember that if you play your cards right, and one day you may well be the CD. Yes. At that point, the problem will go away, sort of, except you'll then have an ECD and maybe a CCO to worry about.
That's so true, isn't it? Sometimes, like, especially if you're in one of those bigger companies, the higher you get, the lower sometimes you feel in terms of having a say.
Yeah,
I've definitely experienced that, I think, in the past. Yeah, I think, and I'd like some of what you said as well is around, like, if you make things subjective, it will get very hard and very personal very quickly. And if you can try and keep conversations objective, and I think you were sort of speaking to that, right, around is it delivering on the brief, then it's a much easier and probably, it's a smarter conversation to have.
100%.
Yeah.
So I think that's really good advice, Andy. It's to keep coming back to the brief. So it's not a question of whether you like it or not. And I have had those sorts of conversations sometimes, even with clients, when you're getting feedback and go, look, I understand that maybe the tea lady doesn't like the color, the shade of blue that we've chosen, but let's maybe just look back to the brief here and the objectives and who the target audience is, and see whether that's relevant.
Well, and also, I mean, looking back at that question, where it's like someone doesn't agree with your design style. Design style is very much about you and yours, rather than perhaps the type of creative that's needed to address the brief. So definitely worth having a look at that.